Joining us now, Sheriff Clarke from Chicago. Sheriff, welcome. Merry Christmas, sir.
John, Merry Christmas to you and your listeners.
Sheriff, I'm in a great mood today because I love Trump. As far as I'm concerned, he's in his second term. I'm not really paying attention to the Joe Biden fantasy cabinet, kind of like Fantasy Island, but because I still think he's going to win. But so he vetoes this mammoth monstrosity that got dumped in Congress's inboxes, 5,593 pages. They had 6 hours to read it. Congressman Griffith said, and he's going to veto it. He says, $600, that's a joke. We're not giving money to illegals. That's a joke. And he wants a clean bill. What say you?
Yeah, the president shouldn't run his fingerprints over any of that. That's irresponsible governing. That's what goes on in Washington, D.C. It's shameful. It really is, the way they slap these things together, and then they all come out smiling, saying we struck a deal. There's no deal there. That is an assault on the American people with that sort of putting of a bill together. I can't believe some of the stuff that I was hearing yesterday. I looked up some stuff myself in terms of what's in there. And they keep calling it a COVID relief bill. It has very little to do with COVID relief. I heard a figure that if you take out the actual COVID relief stuff, you'd have a bill of about $190 billion. Well, then where is the other $800 billion going? And when you see the kind of pork that's in there, you know, any GOPer that signed onto that voted yay on that thing should be removed from office. All right, whatever state they're from, they should be recalled. Every one of them should be primaried in 2022. Every single one of them. I think it passed the Senate something like 93-7. I know the Wisconsin contingency, the 10, the House, and the one Republican senator, they all voted no. But the fact that it passed the Senate 93-7 means the majority of Republicans signed on to that pork.
This bill gives $10 million to Pakistan for gender studies. I mean, it's just, you start looking at some of this stuff. But here's the thing. Remember Trump said in 2017, right, where he was just there. They gave him one of these deals at the last minute. They were going to shut the government down. Remember that? And it was the same thing, pork in it and everything else, final hour before Christmas, and he signed it. And remember he said, I'm only going to do this once. I'm going to do it one time till I figure this out. I'm not going to shut the government down at Christmas. I get it. I'm going to sign it, but I'm never going to do this again. And now he's following through on that. He said, because he actually follows through on what he says. He says, I'll never do this again. And so he said, I'm just going to veto it if you don't give me a clean bill and fix it. So we'll see what happens. Right?
Well, I was right. I was encouraged that when the report came out that he was not happy with that and said that he wasn't going to sign it in its present form. He couldn't. I think he would lose credibility.
Totally.
He just wanted to get that over with and keep the government, not shut the government down. All this shutting the government down is a bunch of crap anyway. If you think about it, once the pandemic hit, think of all the people. I think 19 million people lost their jobs. The only people who the checks kept coming in for, the payroll checks, are the federal employees, the government employees, even at the state level. And, when you look at, I think, $15 billion to fix a boat in Sri Lanka, this stuff, it makes you laugh to think that these people would actually think they're serious and think they're important in slapping together something like that. So, he can't sign that in its form. Get all that stuff out, and I don't know if they will. 5,000 pages, and I heard that each person in Congress got 2 hours. Yep. Once they were presented with it, 2 hours before the vote. 5,000 pages. It shows, this is eye-opening, John, because it shows you what really goes on in Washington, D.C. It's a sin before God, the way they do things there. And they all think, like I said, they all come out of there thinking that they are something when they're just a bunch of chumps. None of them really care. I suppose you can pick out a handful. A handful, but I'm not going to try to, find 1, 2, or 3 out of good apples out of a spoiled barrel. Just throw the whole damn bushel barrel away. Mm-hmm. So this is what we got, and You notice the other thing, too, the one you were talking about in 2017, what they did cleverly, and it was Paul Ryan, by the way, but what they did was they tied the continuing of the government bill to a defense bill. And the reason why the president signed it, he wanted to get that defense bill passed to fund the military, because that was one of his big planks in his platform, that we were going to have a strong military. So they dared him. They dared him to veto it with the defense bill, and he couldn't do that. So the president asked in the last defense bill from a couple weeks ago, he asked to put in there getting rid of that Section 230 that protects big tech from lawsuits in light of the fact that they're trampling over people's First Amendment rights. And you had even GOP members of Congress saying, well, we think that should be a separate bill. It shouldn't go into defense spending budget. But now they take, this piece of garbage here. Why didn't they throw 230 into this one? They threw everything else in there, $15 billion to fix a boat in Sri Lanka. Why didn't they put ending Section 230 that protects big tech from lawsuits? This doesn't make any sense, John.
That's why all this has got to come out. And the reason why they gave everybody, 2 to 3 hours to read this, they didn't want them to read it. Because if they started reading through it, they'd have to debate it, and it would leak out of the press. So, in fact, Morgan Griffith yesterday was on the show, I think at 6:30 a.m., Congressman, and he said that it was too big to even put in the data computer. It overwhelmed the system's memory, so they had to split it up in two parts. And somebody printed it out, put it on their desk, and it was like 8 feet of paper. I mean, you couldn't possibly read this in 2 hours, right? So they do this, and they all think we're stupid. And they just pass in all the little goodie bags. And then, I'm sitting here in Virginia this week. I came back from Georgia the other day, and, I get these emails from Kane and Warner. All they do is talk about what money they gave out to people. It's like, do you have a policy? Do you do anything other than give away taxpayer money? I mean, is that your legacy? Is that all you do? I mean, evidently, it's all they do is just give away our money. It's just incredible. And then, well, why are you giving stimulus checks to illegals? They're illegal. It's like they're not here legally. So now you're going to give them checks? Why?
Well, John, that's why I said I can't believe any GOPer would sign on to that thing and keep a straight face. None of them, any of them, anybody who voted yay in the Senate, including in the House, where I think it was about 53 GOP members of the House voted against it. But that means some GOPers in the House signed on to that thing.
A whole bunch
that would give stimulus checks to illegals. What the hell are they doing? How can they do that with a straight face? And then they come home and that's where that phrase you just mentioned of bringing home the bacon, that's all they do. They just irresponsibly spend people's money. I think the national debt now after this porculus bill is going to go up to $30 trillion. Nobody cares about that anymore in Washington, D.C. People used to run on it. I'm going to go to Washington and stop the irresponsible spending and reduce the national debt. No, they aren't. They've all added to it.
No one cares.
Yeah, nobody cares about that anymore. And then you hear these people talking about, we got to be careful of spending money because our children and grandchildren are going to have to pay for it. It's all talk. It's all talk, and I'm sick of it. All of them, both parties.
Well, look at what Congressman Clyburn said yesterday. He said this is not nearly enough, but he said consider it a down payment on what we're going to do in a Biden administration, and all we have to do is elect these two senators in Georgia, and this is a down payment. Okay, it was $1.4 trillion, right? Our national debt is going to $30 trillion. I remember questioning these senators when it was 10. Now it's 30. And he said it's a down payment. Well, what is it? I mean, when you think about a down payment, do you think like you're putting 80% down? No, you think, 20%, 15%, that's a down payment. So what is he saying? The next one is going to be $5 trillion? I mean, where are they getting this money? What are they thinking?
Well, just printing it. Where are they getting it? They're just printing it. The value of the dollar on the world stage is going down because of stuff like this, and we're all paying for it now. The hell of children and grandchildren paying for it. We're paying for this now in real time, and that's why I said the states, if this is going to be fixed, It's not going to be fixed in Washington, D.C. It's going to be fixed at the state level. Under the 10th Amendment, states have to start exercising their authority to decouple from Washington, D.C. Stop having Washington hold money over their heads. That money belongs to the people anyway. It belongs to people like you, your listeners. It doesn't belong to them. So when they, talk about forcing states to do things, withholding federal money, that's got to stop. Now, I don't mean Washington stop it. The states need to say, you know what? That's our money. We'll fix you. We will not withhold federal taxes on people's income anymore. You try to collect it. Mm-hmm. That's what needs to happen, John. That would end that. If the state said no longer, you get your payroll check, we are not taking federal taxes out of it. Let the federal government try to get that money out of you. That would stop it.
Well, the key is that ever going to happen? But that would be it. I mean, look, I think there's a couple states that have tried, talked about really their legislators trying to decouple. Like we don't want the Fed money. We don't want to send Fed money because you have donor states and recipient states. I remember that argument. People saying, well, Virginia's a donor state or a recipient state, or we send more money out than comes back. I mean, the original creation of states was that they had some rights over their own destiny, except for limited opportunity. Sheriff, that isn't happening anymore. All right, let's get to the presidential election and the fraud. I thought the best case presented was in Wisconsin. You finally had a judge to hear it. I know you were involved in that. It went down 4-3, but it was very close. You had 3 judges that voted to overturn the thing, which is a pretty big deal. And, that went down. What do you see from here, Sheriff, on that?
Well, I think all eyes on January 6th. The GOP has to find somebody in the Senate to object when they're opening those envelopes and counting the electoral votes. They just need one. I'm looking at a guy like, maybe a Ted Cruz who, he was very vocal during these counts in the states. He signed on to that Texas lawsuit and said he would argue it in front of the Supreme Court if it went to the court. Well, I'm expecting a guy who's talking big like that now to step up on January 6th and object and throw this thing into chaos. There'll be a number of Republican House members that'll object. You need just one House member and one senator to object, and it throws this thing into chaos, which is what we want, because I think that's where the Trump campaign at this point, has its best chance. I don't think they're going to find any relief in the courts. I really don't. The courts don't want anything to do with this. That 4-3 decision that you talked about in Wisconsin, the 3 conservatives on the state Supreme Court voted to hear it. The 3 liberals voted not to hear it. And the 4th one is a so-called conservative jurist, John. Brian Hagedorn claims to be a conservative jurist, and he contorted himself into some excuse as to why he voted with the liberals. This guy, I helped get that guy elected 3 years ago, and they got 10-year terms, so we're stuck with him. But he's been siding with the liberals time after time after time, but he ran on being an originalist, a textualist, that he would just apply the law as written, and he has not done it. So as a result, the Trump campaign didn't do well on that one in Wisconsin.
There's a hearing today in Georgia with the Oversight Committee of the House. It's the second hearing. They were pressured into it by the great work the Senate did. And there's another lawsuit being filed today at 10 a.m. on the behalf of voters in Georgia that say they were disenfranchised because of the fraud. This is the single most important case filed because this is filed by voters who live in Georgia. And there's no standing issue. There's none of that crap, right? Some court is going to have to hear them out and hear this evidence and hear what the lawyers have to say. And once this is presented, I'm telling you, it's going to be like a wildfire, because I can't talk for Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, or Nevada, but I can't talk for Georgia. And the fraud that went on in this election, and is going on again on January 5th, by the way. That's why when people say, well, how's it going there? What do you mean, how is it going? I mean, I don't know what that means. Like, how is it going? Like, hey, are we reaching out to suburban women in Cobb County? What do you mean, how is it going? Here's how it's going. They're cheating and stealing it again. That's how it's going. So any polls to me are a joke, because here's what's going to happen on January 5th, right? I'll be there doing my show. At 2 a.m., we'll all go to bed. They'll have a 300,000 vote lead. We'll get up at 6 a.m. They'll be losing. It's the same thing. It's going to be the same thing.
Well, here's how they can prevent that, though, John. Strategically, this is chess, not checkers. The counties, and most of 159 counties in Georgia, I think 7 of them are blue. The rest are red. They shouldn't turn their vote tallies in until Fulton County turns their numbers in. Withhold the count so that they don't know how many votes they need to push those two kook Democrats over the top. Don't turn your tallies in until Fulton County registers their votes or turns their votes in, then turn it in, because that will make it harder for the cheating, because they won't know how many votes they need in the end. So play a little, strategically here for the 152 red counties there. Don't turn your numbers in that night. Don't do it.
Sheriff Clarke, spot on, man. Spot on. I want to thank you for all you do and for coming on our show every week in 2019 and 2020. I think it's go back to 2018. Thanks for all you do, Sheriff. You're the man. Thank you.